So we're looking at the Kremlin's so-called 30-hour Easter ceasefire, which, isn't really a ceasefire at all. It's more
Right.
like a one-sided pause that's almost guaranteed to end with the fighting ramping up again.
Absolutely. It sounds like a classic move. Announce something that looks good on paper, but behind the scenes, it's just a tactical reset.
Exactly. It's like they're throwing a ceremonial curveball. On the eve of Orthodox Easter, while millions engage in their traditions, Putin announces a unilateral halt to combat, only to say, well, we'll strike if the Ukrainians do.
Yeah. So it's, more of a staged pause than an actual ceasefire, right?
Right on. And if you look back, this isn't their first brush with empty promises. There was that 36-hour Christmas truce in January 2023, and even way back in 2022, a similar move was made
Certainly.
in Mariupol.
It seems like every time we get a glimmer of hope, it turns out to be just a smokescreen, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It's like, a historical pattern of temporary pauses that allow Russia to reposition its forces. They use these moments to gather strength and then, bam, resume their offensives almost on cue.
I see. And speaking of patterns, what about that connection with Trump? I mean, is it really that influential?
That's the spicy part. According to Kremlin spin, this Easter gesture follows some thinly veiled threat from the US, reportedly relayed by former President Trump. Apparently, Trump hinted that if either side wasn't sincere, peace talks would just fall apart.
Right, yeah. So essentially, Putin might be leveraging external pressure to justify these, tactical resets?
Exactly. There was even that call to General Gerasimov where promises were made about not hitting Ukraine's energy grid, then reversed later that day. Kremlin even boasted about over 100 violations by Kyiv, though there's no solid public evidence backing that up.
It sounds like a lot of talk and very little action on their part.
For sure. And then, within minutes of the ceasefire's start, air raid sirens were already blaring in Kyiv and nearby regions, demonstrating that, in reality, Ukrainian forces were very much still on the move and quickly calling out the deception.
Yep. That rapid response by Ukraine really lays bare how ineffective these unilateral gestures are, don't you think?
Totally. It underscores that real peace isn't something you can announce with a phone call. It's a mutual, binding deal. Meanwhile, on the battlefield, you see the consequences. Russia is struggling with aging equipment, patchwork armor, and reduced efficiency in advancing.
I agree. It's almost like they're trying to distract, but the facts on the ground are telling a much harsher story.
Exactly, and there's also that aspect of fracturing Western unity. Some analysts argue that Putin might be nudging the US back into pressuring Kyiv, or even keeping Trump in the picture as a potential peace broker.
Yeah, interesting point. I get that, but isn't it a bit too simplistic to say he's just playing that role? I mean, there are so many layers to this whole setup.
That's a fair challenge. Yes, it is a bit of a gamble, but when you look at how these ceasefires are used, not to actually secure peace, but to regroup militarily, it does hint at an intent to deceive and manipulate, both domestically and internationally.
Right. So, in essence, until we have a two-sided, truly binding agreement, this kind of gesture remains hollow.
Precisely, and that's the bottom line. Without bona fide negotiations and military restraint from both sides, proclaiming an Easter pause is just Kremlin rhetoric, a PR stunt.
Yes, absolutely. And meanwhile, Ukraine has been holding its ground, expanding control along the border, showing that they're not buying into these theatrics at all.
Exactly. It's like a harsh reminder that in this conflict, real change comes not from fleeting gestures, but from sustained support and a genuine mutual ceasefire, the kind you can actually count on, with both sides signing papers and having impartial monitors.
Couldn't agree more. Right, so as we keep an eye on this, it looks like we'll be expecting more smoke and far less mirrors in the months ahead.
Absolutely. It's time to brace for the long haul. The Easter eggs might not roll gently into trenches anytime soon, and the ceasefire bells aren't ringing in Donetsk or Luhansk. Instead, the real story is about the enduring struggle and the need for genuine, negotiated peace.
Right on. No. Thanks for the deep dive into this. It really highlights how complex and layered the issue is, not just ceremonial gestures, but enduring military realities.
Exactly, it's a reminder not to be lulled by theatrical pauses. Real progress comes with hard, mutual agreement and accountability on both sides.
Well, that was an engaging look into how politics and warfare are often entangled in a web of rhetoric and action.
Absolutely, and it leaves us with the thought that until peace is truly negotiated and monitored, we're likely to see these maneuvers continue. Thanks for diving into this with me.
Always a pleasure. Here's to hoping for that genuine breakthrough sooner rather than later.